I never thought the gym would feel like a second home. Most days it didn't. It smelled faintly of rubber mats and old coffee, and the hum of treadmills blurred into the kind of noise you could forget while staring at the ceiling too long. But lately, I'd been showing up early. Not for the weights, not even for the routine. For something quieter. She was usually there before me. Mid-40s, sharp posture, the kind of calm that made the room feel less chaotic. She wasn't my trainer, not officially. She just knew what she was doing. And once in a while, she'd glance over and correct my form with 2 words, short, simple, like she was tossing me a spare coin. Shoulders down. Breathe out. I'd nod, pretending I hadn't been holding my breath for a completely different reason. It started small. A wave across the room, an eyebrow raised at my clumsy squats. Once, she asked if I was done with the bench, and I moved so quickly I nearly tripped over the dumbbells. She smiled, not a wide grin, just a half curve that lingered longer than it should have. And then her friends started coming along. Slightly younger, more talkative, quick with jokes. The 2 of them moved like a unit, one steady, one bright. They'd stretch together, trade whispers that ended in quiet laughter. I'd catch fragments of it, never the whole thing, like I wasn't supposed to. Still, they always acknowledged me. The friend teased me once about how I carried my water bottle like it was a trophy. I laughed it off, though my face burned. The truth was, I didn't have many people checking in on me. My phone was full of half-written messages I never sent. Want to hang out? Delete. How've you been? Delete. Evenings were just silence, cheap leftovers, and scrolling through feeds I didn't care about. The gym was one of the only places where I felt noticed. And she noticed. Not always in words. Sometimes in the way her eyes flicked to the weight I picked up, as if quietly measuring. Or how she adjusted her own pace when she saw me struggling through a set, so I didn't feel like I was dragging behind. Once, after I finished early and sat on the floor pretending to check my laces, she passed by and said, "You don't quit easy." That's good. Simple words, but they stuck with me the whole week. I started memorizing the rhythm of her presence. The way she always tied her hair twice before starting. How she'd tap her thumb against the stopwatch, even when she wasn't timing anything. I never said it out loud, but I was learning her the way people learn their favorite song, unconsciously, piece by piece. This morning felt different, though. The air was heavier, like something unsaid had been floating around too long. Her friend was chatting with someone else near the entrance, leaving just the 2 of us by the mirrors. She caught me staring at my reflection more than the barbell, and without looking directly at me, said softly, "You overthink more than you lift." I laughed, but it came out quieter than I meant. Maybe. Her eyes finally met mine in the mirror. Just for a second. But it was enough to make me forget the weight in my hands. Then my phone buzzed on the bench. A message. Not from who I expected. Her friend's name lit up the screen. "We're grabbing coffee after this. You should come." I glanced up. She was already walking away, towel over her shoulder, like she hadn't been part of the decision at all. But she didn't say goodbye. And somehow, that felt louder than the invitation itself. I almost didn't go. The coffee invitation sat on my phone like a dare, and for a moment I convinced myself it was just politeness. The safer thing would have been to leave. But the thought of going home to silence felt heavier than whatever awkwardness was waiting at that cafe. So I followed. The 3 of us ended up at a corner table, the kind with a chipped edge and a view of the streetlights. Her friend carried the conversation, stories about work, her latest failed date, things that filled the air easily. I nodded, laughed at the right moments, but my attention kept drifting. She was across from me, stirring her tea with a slow rhythm. Not speaking much. Every now and then her eyes would flick toward me, then away, like checking to see if I was keeping up. When her friend went to the counter for more napkins, the silence between us thickened. She set down her spoon, folded her hands, then said quietly, "I don't usually stay out after the gym." It was such a small admission, but it felt personal. "Why tonight, then?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Just traced the rim of her mug with her finger, watching the steam rise. "Sometimes it's easier not to go straight home," she said finally. Her tone was light, but it carried weight underneath, something unsaid. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't. Instead, I told her something I hadn't planned to. "I almost didn't come." That made her look up. Her expression didn't change much, but I caught the faintest curve at the corner of her mouth. "But you did," the friend returned then, napkins fluttering, voice bright enough to break whatever thread had been tying us in that pause. Conversation shifted again, but my chest felt restless, like I'd stepped too close to a line I couldn't name. On the walk back, the three of us split near the parking lot. Her friend waved, called out a quick goodnight, and drove off. That left the two of us under the dull orange glow of a street lamp. She pulled her jacket tighter. "You don't live far, right?" "No. 10 minutes. She nodded, then hesitated. For a second, I thought she might just leave it there. But then she said, "I was married once. A long time ago." The words came out flat, practiced, like she'd said them before, but the way she avoided looking at me told me it wasn't easy. I didn't know what to say. My mind ran with questions. Where was he now? What happened? Did it still hurt? But I stayed quiet. Instead, I shifted my bag, trying to match her pace. She gave me a sideways glance, and there was something in it, not an invitation, not yet, but not a wall either. At the corner where our paths split, she reached out. Just a small gesture, her hand brushing the strap of my bag, straightening it on my shoulder. "Don't overthink everything," she murmured, almost like a joke. But her fingers lingered longer than the gesture required. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The days after that coffee felt different. At the gym, I found myself searching for her before I'd even dropped my bag. Sometimes she was there, sometimes not, and both had their own weight. When she was there, I caught myself mirroring her movements, like gravity pulling me into her orbit. When she wasn't, the air felt thinner, like I'd shown up to the wrong place. One evening, she arrived later than usual. No friend this time. Just her, hair damp from the rain, jacket folded neatly over her arm. She gave me a faint nod, not unfriendly, but distant, and went straight to the treadmill. I hesitated. My hands kept tightening and loosening around the dumbbell, like they couldn't decide what they wanted. Finally, I walked over, too casually to be casual. "You almost skipped today," I said. She slowed her pace, glanced sideways. "Almost." Her voice was soft but final, like she wasn't inviting questions. I should have left it there. But instead I asked, "Busy?" Her eyes flicked toward me, unreadable. "Something like that." Then she pressed the incline button, letting the machine's hum grow louder, cutting the space between us. I stood there for a beat too long. Felt the silence turn sharp. Then moved away. For the next half hour, we orbited each other, close enough to notice, far enough to pretend we weren't. I caught her watching me once, when she thought I wasn't looking. And then she turned quickly, tying her hair again even though it didn't need it. When we finally left, it was already dark. The rain had slowed to a mist, the kind that clung to clothes without sound. We walked out together by chance, both pausing under the awning. "You didn't bring an umbrella," she said. "Didn't think I'd need one." She gave a small, almost exasperated laugh, then shook her head. "You're young." It wasn't an insult. More like a reminder of the gap hanging between us, the unspoken thing neither of us named. The streetlight flickered above us, and for a second, the world shrank to the sound of water dripping from the gutter. She shifted closer, just a step, enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her. I thought she might say something then. Instead, the gym door opened behind us, her friend's voice calling out, "Hey! You two still here?" The moment snapped. She stepped back. The distance was immediate, like she'd never moved closer at all. We said quick goodnights, the kind that don't leave room for more. But as I turned, I felt her hand brush against mine. Not deliberate, not accidental. Somewhere in between. I stopped breathing for half a second. Looked at her. She didn't meet my eyes, just pulled her jacket tighter and started walking. That near touch stayed burning on my skin the whole way home. It happened on a night when the gym felt emptier than usual. Just a few stragglers, the hum of one machine in the back, and the smell of disinfectant still sharp from the cleaners. She finished early, wiping down her mat with slow, deliberate strokes. I was pretending to re-rack weights I'd already organized, trying not to look like I was waiting for her. When she finally slung her bag over her shoulder, I fell into step beside her. No words at first. Just the echo of our sneakers on the pavement outside. The air was cool, crisp, the kind that made each breath sharper. She tucked her hair behind her ear, and I caught the faintest shiver run through her arm. Without thinking, I asked, "Cold?" She gave a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Always." We stopped at a bench near the lot. She sat, adjusting the strap of her bag like it needed fixing. I stayed standing a moment before sinking down beside her. The silence stretched, elastic and heavy. Then she said it, not looking at me. "You remind me of someone." I turned. "Who?" "Myself. A long time ago." She let out a faint laugh, though it wasn't humor. More like surrender. "Too eager. Too restless. Always waiting for someone else to tell me what I was worth." Her words lodged in me, too raw to answer right away. I shifted, hands clasped between my knees, trying to hold the right response. "And now?" "No," she said slowly. "I know better. Or at least I pretend to." The way she said it, like the act of pretending cost her something, made my chest ache. I wanted to tell her everything then. How the silence of my apartment felt louder than any gym. How her smallest glance carried me further than anything else did. But the words stuck thick and heavy. Instead, what slipped out was softer. "You make it easier." That made her still. She turned slightly, finally meeting my eyes. Her gaze wasn't sharp, wasn't guarded. Just searching. "Easier to what?" I hesitated, fumbling in the pause. "To stay. To keep showing up." For a moment, she looked like she might say something back. Then her jaw tightened, and she looked away. "That's not fair." The sentence hung there, cutting deeper than if she'd raised her voice. I swallowed. "Why not?" "Because I'm not." She stopped. The word stuck. She pressed her lips together, exhaling through her nose, shaking her head. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, waiting. Not pushing, just waiting. Finally, she whispered, "You're young. You'll wake up one day and wonder why you wasted time with someone who should have known better." Her hand brushed against mine on the bench, not quite holding, not quite moving away. The silence around us roared. I wanted to close the gap, to take the hand she hadn't withdrawn. But the question formed first, thick in my throat. "Is that really what you think?" After that night on the bench, things shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way anyone else would notice, but I felt it. She stopped lingering after the gym. No more pauses under the awning, no more quiet walks to the lot. She'd leave quickly, towel tucked under her arm, a polite nod if our eyes met. Nothing more. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Bad timing. Schedules out of sync. But the pattern held. Then her friend mentioned it casually, mid-conversation while stretching. "She's been tired lately. Said she might take a break from the gym." A break. The word landed heavier than it should have. I thought about texting her. I even typed it out once. "You okay?" The 3 words glared back at me, needy, obvious. I deleted them. Days blurred. I kept showing up, half expecting her to reappear, half dreading it. And then one evening she did. Except she wasn't alone. A boy walked in with her, not young, not old, maybe late teens. Broad shoulders, the kind you get from growing up too fast. He carried her water bottle like it was his job. "Son," she said simply, introducing him to a few people nearby. Not to me. Not directly. But I heard it. The words stuck like a pin in my chest. He hovered near her as she worked out, protective in a way that looked practiced. She barely looked my way, and when she did, her expression was unreadable. Flat. As though she'd pulled a curtain closed. I tried to focus on my sets, but the weights felt foreign in my hands. Every rep echoed the same thought. I didn't know her, not really. Later, as I left, I caught sight of them in the parking lot. He opened the car door for her. She laughed at something he said, an easy, unguarded laugh I'd never heard before. It was gone in a second, but it gutted me all the same. That night, my apartment felt smaller than ever. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, screen lit with the empty message box. I miss you. Delete. I didn't know. Delete. Do I even matter? Delete. The words kept coming and vanishing, piling up in the void where a sentence should have lived. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. I locked my phone and set it face down on the desk. The silence pressed in, thicker than usual. Across town, maybe she was laughing again. Or maybe she was sitting in her car, hands on the wheel, trying to remember how to breathe. I'd never know. All I had was an unsent message glowing in the dark. It was late when I saw her again. Not at the gym, not surrounded by clatter and mirrors, but in the most ordinary place, the grocery store. Fluorescent lights humming, aisles smelling faintly of oranges and cleaning supplies. She was standing in front of the tea section, holding a box like she wasn't sure if it belonged to her. For a moment, I almost turned the other way. But something in me, something tired of unsent messages, kept me walking forward. She noticed me before I could speak. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, then a guarded calm. "You're here late," she said. "So are you." We stood there, surrounded by shelves, the silence louder than the hum above. She placed the tea back down, hands smoothing over the box as though it needed straightening. "I wasn't sure you'd still." I stopped myself. The words hummed. "Still what?" "Still come back," I said finally. Her lips pressed into a thin line, then softened. "I almost didn't." Something in the way she said it, flat, honest, hit deeper than I expected. "You don't have to explain." I started, but she shook her head. "No, I do. She looked down at her hands, fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. "I pull away when things feel dangerous. Not dangerous like unsafe. Just—" Her breath caught, and she gave a faint laugh without humor. "Like I might forget how to keep myself separate." I swallowed, shifting my weight. The tile felt unsteady beneath my shoes. "You don't have to stay separate all the time." Her eyes lifted to mine then, steady but tired. "You're young. You think closeness is simple. For me, it isn't." The words were a wall, but not the kind that locked me out. More like a wall with a door she wasn't sure she wanted open. I nodded slowly. My throat tightened, but I made myself say it. "I don't know what this is supposed to be. But I know it matters. At least to me." The admission sat between us, fragile as glass. She exhaled, long and shaky, then stepped closer. Not much, just enough that I could smell the faint citrus of her shampoo. Her hand lifted, hovered near my arm, then rested there lightly. The smallest touch, but it carried more weight than anything I'd lifted in that gym. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "You matter. I just don't know what to do with that." The knot in my chest loosened, not all the way, but enough to breathe. I gave a faint smile, trying to make it simple, not dramatic. "Then maybe just start there." Her shoulders eased, and for the first time in weeks she smiled back. A real one, tired but real. Either of us said more? We didn't need to. Standing there under the cold lights, surrounded by tea and silence, the weight between us shifted. Not gone. Just shared. "Okay," she said softly. Time passed without ceremony. Weeks folding into months, seasons shifting in small, almost forgettable ways, gym lights replaced with softer bulbs, mornings getting darker, her tea cabinet slowly filling with boxes she'd once only glanced at in the store. We never had a declaration, never sat across from each other and named what this was. It built itself in routines, in habits that seemed ordinary from the outside. I'd find her waiting on the bench outside the gym at 8:47 a.m., her stopwatch thumb tapping like always, though she rarely timed anything anymore. Some mornings we walked in silence, other mornings she'd hand me a thermos and say, "It's too cold for just water." It was never sweetened, never complicated, just black tea. She started coming by with small requests. "Can you fix this?" as she handed me a lamp with a crooked cord. "Can you carry this upstairs?" With groceries she pretended weren't heavy. I didn't mind. Each task felt like an invitation, even when she pretended it wasn't. Her son came around sometimes. At first, he hovered, skeptical, protective in a way that made sense. But eventually, he nodded at me without words, a quiet acceptance carved out of time rather than conversation. It wasn't perfect. Some evenings, she'd retreat into herself, folding laundry like it was armor, staring at her phone longer than she meant to. I learned not to fill those silences, not to push. Instead, I sat nearby, letting her know she wasn't alone. And in turn, she let me in, slowly. A photo tucked in a drawer, a story about the way rain used to leak through her first apartment roof. Little fragments, given carefully, but given. There were still pauses. Moments when she'd look at me like she was about to ask, "Why are you here?" But then her eyes softened, and the question faded. We never kissed under dramatic streetlights. No late-night confessions carved into the air. What we had grew in smaller spaces, in the clink of mugs on her kitchen counter, in the way she let her hand rest on mine just a second longer than needed, in the quiet laughter when she caught me overthinking again. One evening, months after that first coffee, we ended up back at the same bench outside the gym. The air was cool, the same faint mist clinging to our jackets. She leaned back, exhaled, and said, "Strange, isn't it?" "What is?" I asked. "How something can start without you noticing. And then one day, you realize it's already here." I nodded, the streetlight humming above us, the silence holding steady. She reached for my thermos this time, took a sip without asking, and handed it back. It felt like an answer. And maybe that's all we ever needed.